Hey everybody, good morning. This is Justin Dunaway with the Institute of Clinical Excellence, coming at you live from Portland, Oregon, bright and early. And today I want to talk about this idea of flexiphobia and kind of our cultural fear of some things around the spine. First of all, let's just talk about what exactly is flexiphobia. I don't even think it's a real word. I've heard it used by a couple different clinicians. I think it's a brilliant term, but it basically is just this inherent fear in flexing the spine and bending forward. And from a clinician standpoint, we see this all the time in our patients, right? And in some patients, it's adaptive. It makes sense early on in acute injury. Flexion exacerbates the symptoms. Extension feels good. So patients become fearful of flexion. But down the road, when we see them 3, 6, 12 months later, a year later, and they haven't bent their spine forever, that's become maladaptive. There's an issue with this fear around flexion. So I wanna dig into this a little bit today. First thing right off the bat, we've got to realize is from a cultural standpoint, we've got, let's face it, more than any other part of our body, we're afraid of our backs. We're afraid of our spines, and within that, there's a lot of fear around bending the spine, moving the spine forward, right? When we look at some of Ben Darlow's work, I love Ben Darlow's work when it comes to looking at patients' beliefs around back pain. But the first paper, Enduring Impact of What Clinicians Say, we'll throw a link to it in the notes here, but this is something that every clinician should read. We learn that people derive their beliefs from their beliefs about their back from lots of sources, from the media, from the news, from advertisements, from WebMD, from all this stuff that they see around them. And they also get a large amount of their beliefs from the stuff that clinicians tell them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about the first stuff. Like, what are the stuff that people see in regards to their back just walking around in normal life? You can't walk through a workplace, a store, a factory without seeing posters on the wall of I'm air quoting, but proper and improper lifting techniques and people bending their spines and lightning bolts or fire shooting out of their back. You can't pick anything up without somebody around you saying, oh, make sure you bend with your knees, not with your back. You got to protect your back. Right, and then there's, you can't stand in the checkout aisle of a grocery store without seeing magazines devoted to building the core to protect the spine, and advertisements for special desks, sitting desks, standing desks, positional change desks, ergonomic desks, all this equipment, magic pillows for sleeping better at night, and special beds to make your back protected at night, and this whole industry that's built around this idea that backs are inherently fragile and scary and dangerous, and above all of it, bending forward is evil. Right? There's so much information that we get bombarded with all day long about that stuff. So, in another great Ben Darlow paper, Easy to Harm, Hard to Heal, he asks that question. What is it that patients believe about their backs? And, it comes down to 4 things, right? People just inherently believe that backs, in relation to everything else, backs are vulnerable, they need protection, back pain has a poor prognosis, and there's something special about the back. There's something different. Everybody here has rolled their ankle, has had twinges in their knee, or pain in their elbow, or whatever, and that's no big deal. But man, when that back flares up, when you get that little back spasm, when you get that first twinge in your spine, there's something terrifying about that. There's something different about that than anything else. This is what patients believe, right? So a really great example, and what got me started thinking about talking about flexiphobia today is, I met this personal trainer, coach, really good at his job, and he is just a true movement expert. Level 2 CrossFit, and personally, he's incredibly strong, incredibly fit. He's got great form and control. And he's got some intermittent back stuff. He's got a little pain and stiffness that creeps up every now and then. And I was just asking him some questions about it. And basically he said that it's just something that's there. And in his head, the most important thing for him to do is be nice to his spine. And I just asked him what that meant. He said, I just gotta be real careful and make sure that I don't bend it. I don't bend forward. And watch him move. Yeah, he looks like he's got a little bit of a stiff back. You don't see a ton of reversal of the normal lordosis when he moves forward. But it really got me thinking. From a movement expert standpoint, and this is something that come to all clinicians and all of us should be thinking about all the time. What other joint, what other region in the human body do we say, all right, let's take a look at you here. Yep. Very strong, check. Endurance is on point, beautiful. I'm watching you move. You've got great control. You got good form. So I think what we need at this point is less mobility. Yeah, let's go ahead and lock that down and cut out one of the 4 cardinal planes. Let's see, the back knee moving, flexion, extension, side bend rotation. Let's go ahead and just throw one of those out the window, right? Be like the patient that Doris comes in after some golf and she says, Justin, I've got some elbow pain. It creeps up on me every once in a while when I'm golfing, and I say, okay, cool, Doris. Well, I think the first thing we should do is let's get that elbow straight and not bend it for a while. How long? I don't know. We'll address that later. But let's go ahead and get that straight, and then maybe we'll do some strengthening with that elbow locked and just not bend it. Right? It doesn't make sense when we think about the back in the same way we think about the rest of the body. Some of our ideas start to fall apart there. Right, so where does this idea come from that this back is inherently scary? At least from a patient pain perspective. What we know is that lots of patients have this peripheralization centralization phenomenon. Certain positions feel better with an acute back injury, and certain positions feel worse. And patients, independent of clinicians, people figure this out, right? I hurt my back in the garage picking up a box, and I got some pain that creeps down the back of my thigh a little bit. And when I bend over, it gets a little bit worse. Maybe it's behind my knee. And then when I stand up straight or stretch it backwards, that pain creeps up into my leg. So flexion must be bad, extension must be good. Early on, right? This is adaptive. This makes sense. This is how we heal. This is perfect. Pain is designed to create behavior change so things can heal. Adaptive pain. So this pain, this idea that bending forward makes it worse, bending backwards makes it better, is adaptive. We need that. We need that fear of flexion early on in specific patients, right? But as we go down the road, that becomes maladaptive. From a clinician standpoint, right, we can see where this starts to become a problem. Patients come in with acute back pain. We only have so many visits and so much time. And what do? We've identified a direction of preference. We see that repeated extensions centralize their symptoms, flexion peripheralizes their symptoms. And what do? We extend them. We do some loading in neutral. We work on extension. We get rid of their symptoms. We make their pain feel better. They're feeling awesome. They're doing their HEP, and we send them home. Right? We got to think about it, and a lot of times that's where it gets left. We extend, we strengthen. Everything's doing awesome, and we're 3 or 4 visits down the road. We're 3 or 4 weeks down the road, and it's time to move on to the next patient. We got to think about the downstream effects of that. As the patients come in with this fear of flexion, with pain that changes with flexion, or with pain that gets better with extension and worse with flexion, and all we do is extend them, and all we focus on is alleviating their symptoms, getting them a little bit stronger and moving on, the downstream effects for that patient down the road, when we've never reinstilled the permission to flex, when we've never restored that mobility, when we've never restored that confidence in flexion, loaded flexion, mobility in that direction, we leave patients with this inherent fear, this inherent flexiphobia, where they're constantly co-contracted, they're constantly guarding their spine, and they're terrified of bending forward. And from a chronic pain perspective, we see these patients 10, 15, 20 years down the road that will tell you flat out, I haven't bent my spine in 5, 10 years. I haven't bent forward. I haven't tied my shoes without laying flat on the bed because when I bend forward, the disc pushes back onto my nerve, and I know that 10 years ago, flexion was bad, and they told me that I had to protect my spine, and I don't bend anymore, right? Early on, that's adaptive. When there's the pain creates a fear, and all of this creates behavior change to allow to allow whatever's going on to heal. But when fear is created, there's got to be a plan to extinguish that fear when it's no longer needed. Right? So when we're treating our patients with back pain, the first thing we have to think about is we got to begin with the end in mind, right? what is the end? Well, the end isn't centralizing the pain, getting rid of their symptoms, and getting them out the door. The end is restoring mobility, is bringing back in that fourth motion, is getting patients confident in flexion, right? The end is the same with every patient. It doesn't matter if they come in with shoulder pain, back pain, neck pain, knee pain. The end is what? The end is restoring mobility, restoring loading through mobility, restoring confidence in movement, and rebuilding this idea of resilience of the human body and independence and independent progression. Patients should be able to go out and know how to challenge their system so that they're always moving better, they're always getting stronger. And that's the same for shoulders, knees, whatever. The end goal has to be restoring mobility and confidence in loading through mobility. Right? So when we think about this, our goal can't just be to centralize pain. It can't just be to eliminate pain or restore function. We have to, when we're thinking about back pain, we have to be thinking about resuming flexion and showing patients that it's okay to load in flexion when their body is trained for it. But that's just part of the goal, right? Getting patients to move better in flexion, restoring, getting them to bend forward again, yeah, that's cool. But really the bigger goal is this. We have to realize, we have to understand some of Darlow's work and realize that when patients walk through the door, from a cultural perspective, most people are afraid of their backs. Most people have maladaptive beliefs of their backs. Most people guard and protect and think about their backs when they do lots of different things, when they do lots of different movements. And there's a lot of cultural pressure to be afraid of their backs. So as we're working with these patients, as we come alongside these patients, as we're identifying our objective and subjective asterisk signs and moving the needle and progressing the patient forward, we've also got to have a good pulse on their beliefs and understandings about their back and be working to change these things. What patients need to believe about their spines is not that they're fragile, not that they're weak, not that they need protected and that flexion is evil. But the spine is inherently strong, inherently resilient, is this amazing thing with all this motion and incredible strength to do lots of stuff. And we have to be able to reinstill hope or reinstill belief in the patient that their spine is not fragile and something that needs protected for the rest of their life, but something that they can go out and challenge and strengthen and move. So, at the end of the day, when you guys are out in the clinic today, and when you're working with your patients for back pain, try to take the pulse of their beliefs about their back. Try to dig into a little bit about some of their fears and some of their expectations. And let's make sure that as we're working with these patients, we're doing two things. One, we're not reinforcing this idea that flexion is evil. Let's not make patients afraid of flexion. Early on, yeah, we may need to protect them against flexion because extension is the way to go. But down the road, the end has to be restoring normal motion in the spine. And normal motion includes flexion and being able to pick stuff up from the floor with a flexed spine, with a bent spine, with a twisted spine. The other thing that we have to do with all these patients through the door is really try to combat this cultural bombardment that the spine is weak, fragile, and needs protected. We need patients to understand that everybody has back pain. Back pain is totally normal. It comes and it goes. Just like every other part of our body that we don't think about, the back is going to have twinges. It happens. It's okay. It's no big deal. Your spine is strong. Your spine has an amazing capacity to heal. It's no different than anything else. And you don't need to be afraid of it. All right, great. That's all I got. A couple quick announcements. If you're looking to learn some spinal manipulation skills or touch up on some of the ones that you already have, I'll be teaching our spinal thrust manipulation course in Seattle, August 11th and 12th. Zach Long will also be doing our Fitness Athlete Live seminar in Seattle that weekend as well. The next round of the 8-week online persistent pain management course begins August 20th. And this really exciting course coming up September 1st and 2nd with RJ Williams in Portland, Oregon. He's doing his Dizziness Demystified course. If you're looking to learn all things vestibular, this course is going to be amazing. So hope to see you out there at one of these courses. And thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.